We have to keep updating our slides because we just keep winning them. We're the winningest conference by a long shot, by over 200 to the next conference. We're available in 60 million US homes, and we just signed an amazing deal with YouTube, oddly enough, to distribute the network internationally in 33 countries. And that grows as well every day. Each year, we produce 850 live events, and I'm not sure if anyone understands the magnitude of that. A live event could be anything from a baseball game to a football game to a women's track meet to a wrestling event to lacrosse. We televise 850 every single year. It's an immense amount of content to produce, and we had to find a new way to do it, which is why I'm here. And we were founded through a 12-year, $3 billion deal with a B between Fox and ESPN that provided the seed money to launch the networks. And of those 850 events that we're covering, there's still another 2,000 plus that we aren't covering. So there's lots of content. So when we first started, I was tasked with coming up with a way to produce that much content cost effectively. And we had a mission statement. We had a mantra that we used, and this is it. You're actually seeing part of the slide that I used to propose the network that we built. We had to use existing technology and existing resources where available because we don't have the money to dig fiber up at every one of these universities. So we partnered. We found universities that had great network connections. We found universities that had fiber in the ground already at all the venues. And with their help, we were able to create what you'll see. And the biggest challenge we faced was, why would we do it differently? The old way, and I'll explain how it used to be done, is you have your network center in San Francisco, and what do? When you're at a venue, you roll a truck. That's the old way. That's how it's been done for like 30 years, 40 years. And what do you do with that truck? You have to produce the event on site. So let's put a satellite up in space. It's really easy. If we've got a clear line of sight to the sky, we can send our signal up, and then we can downlink it at the network center. The problem with this is it's extremely expensive. It's like $800 an hour or something for satellite time, and that's just for a small slice. If you need more bandwidth, if you try to do multiple video feeds, you're hamstrung. And it's one direction. It goes up and it goes down. You can't go back. So we said, we're the Pac-12. I like to put fire into presentations. We're the Pac-12. We can do it better. We have these great universities. They have amazing technology, and they have infrastructure. So I had to replace these two little boxes. I don't necessarily want to have to send a production truck to every one of the events, and I definitely don't want to use satellite. So we got very lucky. All the Pac-12 universities are already connected to Internet 2. So there's my alternative transmission path. And I could figure out a way to do something better than a production truck because it's expensive and it's a 53-foot semi that has to drive to all the different events. So we came up with this technology called a multicam. So you guys know what this is, but when I give this presentation to people, Internet 2, they ask me, like, there's another internet? And I was like, kind of. So I had to give this to the executives and kind of walk them through this. So if I click here, you'd see the live status map of Internet 2, which is the backbone we ride on. I won't click it because you guys probably built it, so don't have to show you. So all these universities are already connected to an amazingly fast network. So I need to be able to get on that network, and I'll be able to use it and leverage the fact that these universities are already talking to each other and exchanging massive amounts of data. Video is different, but it's still data. So I needed redundancy. I have Internet 2 and I have the network center. How do I get onto it? And we investigated joining Internet 2 physically with a piece of fiber. It's very expensive, as I'm sure you guys know. So we got smart and said, what if we connect to two of our universities? And they happened to be, literally my first day on the job was calling in the building at the network center and saying, just tell me every service provider vault that's in our building. Just go to the MPO and literally just read me the names. We hadn't even moved in yet. And there were two of them. There was AboveNet and there was XO Communications. They were already in our building, in the basement, had tons of fiber. So I said, what if I put a 10 gig connection from us to these universities? Because they have tons of fiber available as well. All I need to do is drop two connections in because they're already connected. Now I have access to Internet 2. So all my universities I reach through Cal Berkeley and the University of Utah. But I need it to be diverse because this is live video. This is 60 million people possibly watching it. I can't have a fiber cut take us off the air. So if you look on this map, you'll see where we're located, almost right next to the Bay Bridge. I needed two paths. to get to Cal. And I was lucky enough to find that AboveNet had fiber underneath the Bay Bridge, and another company had fiber that went down through the peninsula. So I got two diverse paths. But I have to bring it even closer, because this is, again, live video. That's our building. I knew that there were a ton of service provider vaults along 3rd Street, but what happens if there's a fiber cut on 3rd? Again, the game has to go on. So we got a path out underneath through one of our little conduits, and met up with AboveNet, and then off we go underneath the Bay Bridge. But we were smart. We had a secondary path brought in from Folsom, or Harrison, so that we'd be able to survive a fiber cut down to the building itself. So they literally enter our building in 2 different paths. And this is all well and good. We have a connection between the Network Center and Internet 2 through our 2 member institutions, Cal Berkeley and the University of Utah. That's geographic redundancy. In the event that an earthquake happens, we can still, we auto switch over in milliseconds, or picoseconds, whatever the optical protection path is. But it doesn't help me if the Network Center goes away. We still need to produce these events if, God forbid, an earthquake happens. We're in an earthquake region. So we got smart as well. We said, well, what if the University of Southern California is also connected to Internet 2, and Comcast is where we literally uplink our signal into space for the 60 million homes to reach. If I put in a path from the University of Southern California to Comcast Media Center, I can survive a Network Center outage. And we did. So we have 3 paths: primary, backup, and redundant kind of tertiary, oh no, this is a disaster. So we've covered, that's how we're getting our content from the universities to Comcast Media Center, where it goes to 60 million homes. But what is the content? I still want to replace that production truck. And this is where the groundbreaking stuff happens. We had to find a way to explain it, because people weren't understanding when I was telling them, I'd like to get rid of the production truck. We don't need it. We have this amazing network center in San Francisco. We have this amazing network. It's gigabit to every single one of our venues. There's 96 venues in the Pac-12. Every single one has dark fiber at full gig. And we can upgrade that to 10 gig if we want to. So we came up with this mantra of who parked a truck on the 2nd floor. If you ever, raise your hand if you've ever been inside a production truck. So you know, it's a dark room. There's a bunch of video monitors and a desk. You don't know that you're actually at the venue unless you open the door, walk out, follow the path of cables like this, follow the path of cables to the actual field or court, and see the players. So I said, well, let's just build the production truck in San Francisco and bring all the cameras back over the internet. That's what we do. We literally bring all of our camera paths, isolated, or ISOs, to a production room in San Francisco and produce the event as if we're on site and as if we've actually rolled a production truck. This is now becoming the de facto way to do it. We were first. We've been doing this for 3 years. So, live to linear sport coverage. This is not tape delayed, and it's not highly compressed. This goes on our main channel, just like it would if we were doing a men's football game or a women's basketball game. We can do this for every sport. Our production and talent don't necessarily need to be at the venue that they're covering the event from. And this blows people's minds. A lot of times, if you see, they're in a press box, and you see this kind of high and wide camera angle, they're not actually looking at the field. Or if they are, they're looking through tiny little windows. So we said, let's put them in the San Francisco Network Center, put some amazing video monitors in front, and let them call the game as if they're there. We don't lie and say that they are there, but we don't necessarily tell you that they're not. And announcers tend to like this because they get better angles than they would if they were sitting up high in a press box, or if they were sitting down on the court and had a bench behind them that they couldn't see. We're able to give them whatever they ask for. And one announcer actually, we found, did a better performance when we piped a bit of crowd noise into their ear. So we literally have a microphone that's just there to capture the ambient sound of the room. Because people cheer, people yell, that's their team. And so when you hear that in your ear, you stand up. And we watched our announcers go from giving us kind of a bland performance to this. I mean, they got up out of their chair and they're in a soundproof booth. So from now on, that's how we do it. We always pipe crowd noise. We still use professional crews. We always employ students if they're willing to work. It's a wonderful experience. But we still hire camera people. We still hire local talent. And it's just, you might not be on site. You might be in San Francisco. And you can work a couple events at a time. So the compression that we use, everybody's familiar with H.264. It's too latent for us. Round trip encode to decode is somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, 300 milliseconds. We need it faster. If for example, lip sync, you can tell if lip sync is off at 14 milliseconds. So if you've watched on your TV, if the video doesn't match the audio and people's mouths are just flapping, it's 14 milliseconds for you to notice that. So we can't use this. We can't have someone calling a game 300 milliseconds back in time. So we use JPEG 2000. We've used this since the day we started. It is visually lossless. It uses a lot of bits, but it's visually lossless. It's about 100 megabits per camera. So when you look at why we have a gig to all these venues, we do multiple cameras, usually around 6 in one direction coming back to us. So how do we do it? We love Juniper. And I know there's some Cisco guys here. Cisco's wonderful. We use it for all of our local LAN. But the Juniper firewalls worked wonderfully for us. Everything is completely encrypted. From start to finish, we use IPsec encapsulation and encryption. It requires some amazing gear to do this, though. If you come to our network center, you'll see one giant firewall. It's purely our encryptor and decryptor. It doesn't do anything else. We used redundant, diverse paths, as I mentioned and explained, all the way down to the entrance to our building. And CENIC is the network that is used off of UC Berkeley. So we get a direct connection to UC Berkeley, and then they exit onto the CENIC network. In Utah, it's IronNet, or I believe K2. You'll have to ask our network guy. So the endpoints are all Juniper SRX 650s. They'll handle a gig encrypt. At the San Francisco end, it's a 3600 with as many security process cards and network process cards as we could fit into the chassis. There's an optical protection circuit for one of our paths. The other is unprotected. This is the one that if we literally have a fiber cut, it heals instantly. If we have to transit from Berkeley to Utah, there's a 2-second, max 2-second pause in the video while it reroutes itself from California all the way to the University of Utah. And like I said, everything is encrypted.
Sorry, what did you say that reroute latency was? 2 seconds?
What was that? A reroute? It's about 2 seconds. It's less than that, somewhere in the 1.5 range. And we've tested it. We've literally cut the cable while we were on air and watched what happens. The gear we use to encode, if it detects a network loss, pauses, and then it resumes. So it doesn't give us an error slide, doesn't give us a slate, doesn't give a big blinking error, red danger. It just pauses the video on the last frame that it had. So as I mentioned, we have been nominated. We were nominated last year, and we're expecting a nomination this year. We've tweaked our submission. As I was telling Will, last year was an Olympic year, or the awards season was an Olympic year and a World Cup year. So we had some stiff competition. This year, we think we've got a better presentation, and I'm going to share with you actually our submission video. Again, this is something that no one else has seen, but I'm proud enough that I want you guys to see what this network that you built was doing.
Stand by Blue with Duet 1. Opener mic.
Live from Seattle, it's NCAA volleyball on Pac-12 Networks.
For decades, a 53-foot mobile truck, full crew, and expensive satellite uplink have been the standard formula for live remote sports production. But a new technology is reinventing the industry. Now in its 3rd season, the Pac-12 Networks is revolutionizing and creating a new standard known as IP production.
Roll red, track it.
IP production is a streamlined, cost-saving technique that allows for unmatched flexibility, efficiency, and control without sacrificing production value across our 850 live events each year. On location in Seattle, you'll find our talent, cameras, and microphones at a live volleyball event. The rest of our crew, however, is over 850 miles away at our Pac-12 Networks headquarters in San Francisco.
It's an unbelievable technology that allows us to do sports television from a studio here in San Francisco instead of being out on a remote site. The technology allows us to be in a studio. Just like having a truck, the studio becomes the truck.
Ready, 4, take 4.
Our techniques are not streaming media. This is not highly compressed. Using our unique technology, we're able to provide our remote events with multiple video paths in different directions, wireless internet access for all of our truck personnel, file transfers, IFB, communications intercom, and telemetry and telemetrics data. What differentiates us from others doing at-home productions is we don't use video circuits. There are no video circuits employed at Pac-12 Networks for IP productions. Everything is data.
All connectivity is achieved via IP with less than a frame of delay, utilizing our patent-pending mobile input-output box and a small Sprinter van. As compared to the traditional cost of a mobile truck, full crew, and expensive satellite uplink, it is a true David versus Goliath production triumph.
It's really a logistic challenge to travel crew, production staff, announcers to all of these productions, let alone find mobile units and find crew available for all of these. We're capable of producing 3 simultaneous events in 3 control rooms here, so it allows us over a weekend to cover several more events without having to travel an entire crew and having most of them right here in San Francisco.
In 3, 2, and roll red train track.
Hi everybody, welcome.
Washington's such a complete
The
team.
#1 seeded Cardinal begin their quest for their 7th national championship.
IP production cost-saving methods, technological flexibility, and preservation of high production value make this not only a revolutionary asset to Pac-12 Networks, but it also resets the standard for live remote sports television production.
Yeah. So it allows us to produce more events at a higher quality. We found that this technology actually goes to where we have the big 53-foot truck. We still use them for big events, but we found that we can enhance the truck by incorporating it into the Pac-12 Network studio. We have a gigabit. It works in both directions. So they'll send us feeds, they'll send us camera angles that we'll use, we'll enhance, we'll do 3D replays. There's some awesome technology from this company called Libero, where you can literally take 2 cameras and tween between them so you can see if a knee touch happened. It does that all with a GPU and it renders it extremely fast. Normally we'd have to send that server to the truck and hope that you catch it and you send it to the right truck. We have one server, we keep it in San Francisco. We bring all the feeds in and we'll enhance every one of our games, whether they be a top tier men's basketball event or a track meet. It doesn't matter, they all get the same enhancements. It's truly democratized producing sports and it's just an exciting technology that we get to use. Nobody else has this because they still use satellite or they use these video circuits that go, again, in one direction. And people are catching up. ESPN's testing this now. They this year have announced they're going to do 20 at-home productions. We did 237. I mean, and we're keep ramping up. We're not going the other direction. So I wanted to share that with you because we do rely on public networks. We're not for profit. We're not doing this to pad anyone's pocketbook. We're doing this to produce more events. The students love it, it gets more exposure, and it's something that we're really proud of. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You guys have enabled this. So you guys deserve a round of applause for that because we couldn't do this without it. So I really wanted to leave a lot of room for questions because I'm sure that this is something that you guys would want to ask about. So by all means, please. Yeah?
I have two comments. The first one is how much interaction do you guys have with CENIC? Because CENIC is it's a nonprofit organization, if you're familiar with it, that does all kinds of like digital media production, digital post-production, live production, and a lot of that is geared towards movies.
Yeah.
You know, the sort of stuff where you can sort of take your time.
Yep.
It seems to me that you guys are bringing something very unique here, and that by definition, that you have to do this live. So it seems like I just want to let you know that.
I will absolutely look it up.
Yes. Okay. You guys.
There's a challenge. I mean, and like I mentioned with H.264, the latency, there are ways to do this stuff with a lot of latency. I can record everything, file transfer it, and then open up the files. That doesn't really work for a live event, so I'm actually really excited to understand that.
Yeah. The second question is, it seems to me that the next step after this is to actually have a distributed production office instead of having one office in San Francisco where you could have like 6 or 7 people all linked together from different areas. I'm wondering, you know, but you're nodding, so I'm just wondering how you can address that concept.
It's TV. Oh, sure. The question is kind of why are we limited to one? If I understand, why?
Whether or not you're thinking about that.
Yeah, we absolutely are. Why are we limited to one location now? If the fact that you're on a network means you can access the network from anywhere the network exists, you're right. We're not limited there, and it opens up a lot of doors. So we have thought about it. We have to have a disaster recovery scenario. Right now it is Denver, Colorado, but we have 12 member institutions. We've considered if we were to do a master control, if we were to originate our own channel, it might be at one of the universities because we're on the same network. And trust me, your network's going to stay up. I mean, my problem is I've got a single piece of fiber out to each venue. That's going to be the bigger problem, not CENIC. CENIC is going to stay up. You guys built an amazing network. Yeah, it's something that no one else has. It's so I don't know how to describe it. Everything's an option. Yeah, everything's an option. And we actively explore new ways to do things.
Go ahead. I was going to say, do you have other people that have approached you wanting to do this and either license technology or, you know, that sort of thing, getting tips? Or?
We did, so we have, yeah, oh, sorry, keep remembering. Has anyone approached us about licensing this or coming up with a way to do it? Our goal is not to profit off of this. So we would not license this, but we have. We've hosted ESPN, has come to Pac-12 Networks headquarters to see how we do this. Fox was just there last week. I used to work, Big Ten is a Fox company. They came and visited to see if all this magic that we keep talking about is actually true. They left with their mouths open. It's impressive to walk through, have 3 different doors, and know that there are 3 different events happening from 3 different states, and you just walk in. It's like walking into the truck. Now I'm doing the Oregon event. Okay, close the door, walk down literally 5 feet. Now I'm doing the Arizona event. And we can flip those rooms in about an hour. I mean, it's just changing some IP addresses. Everything's data. It's a game change.
I wanted to find out more about how you're at each of the venues and how you're actually getting that circular network connectivity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the model is very simple. We placed a firewall at each of the universities in a university data center. That firewall is uplinked to at least one edge router for the university that's on the Internet 2 connection that they bring. So, for example, Berkeley is CENIC. We have a public IP. We create a tunnel, and all that traffic comes back to San Francisco and is decrypted. It's simply just packets through a tunnel. On campus, we leverage the university's fiber in the ground, dark fiber, to be able to say, where can you get us? Can you get us to all these universities or these venues? We want to do the baseball diamond. We'd like to do your rec center. We'd like to do your football stadium. The universities have, as you guys can attest, I'm sure there's someone from UCI here, tons of fiber. It was all put in the 90s, and it's just sitting there. So we were lucky enough for almost all of our universities. Ken Mills from USC or UCLA has helped us out in finding fiber to the venues that we need to get to. Yeah, so it's just layer 2, local, to an aggregation switch, to a firewall, back to San Francisco. And then the exact same thing on the other end. What we actually do on site, we have this box, which you saw. It was called Mansi. We named them all. They all have an M name. It's called a MIO, which is what we were nominated for the Emmy last year for. We figured out we were too technical and we were too specific. What we're going for this year is the entire production model. And I think it's a much smarter way to present it. But this little box is simply replacing a satellite truck. It just has a fiber uplink. We use these ruggedized fiber connectors called Neutrik Optical Con. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It has 2 parts. There's the male and the female, and when you insert, it actually opens up the fiber protector, so it never actually exposes the fiber, so we don't have dirty fiber problems. And we built a little box called a TX box at every single one of the venues. It's a ruggedized housing that has the female adapter for the Neutrik Optical Con. So setup is connect one cable, and they're online. We give them phone lines, we give them internet access, everything I mentioned in there, we give them file transfers, and then in that little box is our encoders and our decoders. So that's able to digitize the content, send it to San Francisco, and vice versa. We send them net return, we send them enhanced packages, we send them the output of an edit suite. We've actually dedicated edit suites to trucks. They might be 1,300 miles away, but they have their own dedicated edit suite that is just there to produce content, make it new and interesting, and then send it right back to the truck for production. And that's from everywhere from the lowest tier events to the top. They all get incorporated back in San Francisco.
So I kind of learned about your network as I was troubleshooting some of the issues that we ran. What we found out was, yeah, you have these diverse kind of entry to your headquarters and then diverse pathways, but from, I guess, going in and out of the campus, each campus, you only have one path. Unless, and then your file is only a single file line. So I kind of saw that's your single point of failure.
There are a couple single points of failure.
And it is possible, even though the campus has diverse CENIC pathways, if CENIC does something and then it happens to us too, that we could be isolated.
Yep.
So in that event, how would you connect to the rest of
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, every university is something that you learn. Every university is completely different. I learned this back at Big Ten days, where you can't just take one model and apply it to the universities for all of them. It doesn't work. So some schools do have multiple paths out, maybe not through CENIC, but through their research and education provider. And in those cases, we should have two firewalls. One connected to one of the routers on one network, one connected to another router on another network. And that's where we're going this year. This is the year of buttoning things up. This was never proven to work when we first pitched this to the executives, and it costs a good amount of money to do this. But it saved us tenfold, being able to produce more events more cost effectively. So yes, it's a huge goal of ours to build redundancy and have truly no points of failure. But there's still only one encoder at the site. There's still one piece of fiber that we have to use from there back. So we need to add that. We need to add a second encoder. We need to add a second truck. I mean, you can go all the way and say you should have two cameras doing the same thing, just in case one of them breaks. At some point, we had to make a decision that said, we're okay with some level of risk for the reward.
Are you doing any multicast?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we provide IPTV streams. Our entire network center is all IPTV. We did not want to run a single piece of coax for MATV systems if we could avoid it. So yes, we are doing all of our multicast feeds to the truck. They can subscribe to them and change channels as if they were in the network center. And we just have to be very careful about distributing other people's content, so it's all within our closed loop. Yeah, multicast is wonderful. We are big fans.
But not across proceeding teams, right?
No, because the way that this is for contribution, multicast is great for distribution. Contribution, I have one camera, and I need to get it to one location. What we'll actually do is spin up two unicast streams for each camera, one to San Francisco and one to Denver, Colorado for redundancy. But since there's only two endpoints, multicast adds a bit of complexity when you're tunneling it, that we've decided a dual unicast. Our gear is perfectly capable of doing dual unicast. And until we do the distributed model, which I absolutely think is coming, that you alluded to, then multicast becomes the way to go. And we subscribe to the content as we need it, where we need it.
So kind of a follow-on to Janice's question about a distributed production facility. Have you found that the sort of being able to boost 3 venues is limiting, and you'd really like to grow to the second floor of the building or whatever?
We were smart when we built Pac-12. We left a lot of space for expansion. And anyone who's been there, you'll understand when we show you we have an entire studio that we just didn't develop. It's the same size as our main one, but it's just a backup. So when we decide to have more content, we have an entire studio. We did the same thing with how we produce content. We built 3 rooms, but technically we have an entire space to do another 3. Will we? We have 7 channels, 6 regional networks, 7 channels. So that's always our limiting factor. We can only put 7 things live at a time. So with that in mind, we built 7 workstations for checking in events. We built enough studios to do 6 different things at the same time. So yeah, it's a possibility. Right now, 3 is a lot of work to do 3. So I don't know how we would do 4, 5, 6, 7. It'll come, but not yet. And even doing 3 is game-changing for us because we can just produce so much more content so simply, and everything is cookie cutter now. We know the model works. Now it's just scale it up.
What kind of storage backend or archiving or content?
Yeah, that was it wasn't enough when we first launched. We were on our second SAN. The first one died in a colossal failure. We put too much. We were just putting too much on it. And we realized that we were at hardware limits of LSI controllers. We peaked them. Whoever thought that 3.5 gigabytes a second was perfectly fine for doing 7 networks worth of content should be shot, because it's not. This summer, through a partnership with EMC, a wonderful company, we replaced our about 300 terabyte SAN with a full petabyte usable. We also archive, and if you've seen, we're big fans of OpenStack. I spoke in Paris at the OpenStack conference We have decided not to do LTO tape. Again, revolutionary. Everyone said, just put a tape robot in, you'll be fine. Tape's terrible. It's just the worst technology ever. It's rust on plastic. So we decided to do object storage. So now we have a 3 petabyte object store, local, and we burst everything else up to Amazon Glacier for 1 cent per gig per month, and it keeps getting cheaper. There's 7 petabytes under management in Amazon Glacier. Our usage model is such that it's only brought back for about a year, year and a half, and then it barely ever gets brought back. So we keep as much as we can local, and then everything else just goes to Amazon and we bring it back when we need it. So 1 petabyte, tier 1, something like 200 terabytes, tier 2, which is like our NAS, and then everything else is object in the cloud, local and in the cloud. I think we're good. Thank you, guys.